all I want to share is the love of history, which, as I said, is a love I discovered here in these classrooms with these teachers. I think Dr. Banerjee is somewhere here. And I would like briefly, again, to mention the values of this school: secular, open, free discussion, respect for student opinions, liberalism, and generosity of spirit. And again, I'm only beginning to appreciate these now because I feel that they're getting increasingly endangered elsewhere. Now, the oft-heard cry of my students is, when will I ever use this? Is this ever going to be useful? Well, that's one way of thinking about studying. Another way of thinking about it is you have a painfully brief time, school and university, when your parents are willing to spend all their hard-earned cash on letting you walk with giants: Da Vinci, Justinian, Alexander, Marx, Rousseau, Ashoka, Gandhi, Plato. And there is nothing better that you could be doing with this precious time that is given to you. Live the moment, and there is no greater life than the life of the mind. And for me at least, history is the study of that life, the story of ideas, of individuals engaging and forming ideas about the world and shaping the world around them. Now, history does not require a huge conceptual mastery, so you'll find pretty early on that you can actually innovate, and that serious published historians might even take your work seriously. So you can discover something, make a contribution, or just defend an opinion of the past that has never happened before, and you will have made some small contribution to humanity's understanding of itself. Now, unfortunately, many people won't try, because for them, the study of history is nothing more than an agglomeration of facts and details, dates, laws, treaties, wars, and perhaps the exemplary biographies of powerful men. Now, these dry stricts of trivia are as much to do with history as bricks and mortar are to do with the sublime vision that is, say, the Taj Mahal. History is far more extensive. It is the study of everything. And because it is a study of everything, you can study anything. And in that vast freedom, one can find the tools, not just for academic study, but for the creation of yourself. And that is my TED idea today, that studying history can make us more human by teaching us about wonder, anger, freedom, love, beauty, the power of the present day, and maybe just the sheer randomness of things. Yes, ponderous terms, but I feel that they're important. With regards to wonder, history can bring you face to face with something that is equal to your capacity for wonder. Since in history is found the greatest expanse of human experience, imagination, and achievement, studying it is like an Imran, that Celtic word which means a wonder voyage, an odyssey to an Ithaca unknown, but nevertheless brimful of marvels. Marvels like the dizzying range of philosophical thought from Socrates to Wittgenstein, the prospect of women in society, medicine in Rome, Mycenae, aviation in war, art in politics, gold in South Africa, nationalism in Namibia, the social impact of railways on London, architecture, poverty, jazz, poetry, and even courtly love. And then there's the marvel, there's the history of history, the story of mankind seeking to explain itself, from the flying snakes and gold-digging ants of Herodotus to the fierce debates about historical modernity and identity today. Now, historians may no longer be on the critical forefront of human knowledge as they were, say, during the Renaissance. And now then it seemed to be more productive to investigate and recover the lost achievements of Greek and Roman civilization rather than going out into wholly new discoveries. Aristotle retaught mankind philosophy, Galen's medicine, and Cicero politics. Now that particular grandeur has certainly passed to the natural sciences, to medicine and to engineering. But history does have a role, a subtle one and a powerful one, in that it frees us from the tyranny of the present. Now some may believe that history is the story of freedom's long discovery of itself, and that every day we live is better than the last. But I think we accept things today that were once unacceptable. Historians would know this because they can read of times when perhaps these injustices did not exist, a time before zero-sum contracts, a time before the destruction of labor unions, of local communities, before intolerance and terrorism, spiraling house prices, before the unassailability of the nation-state, before total war and carpet bombing, before pollution and surveillance and immigrant bashing, and before shocking inequality. We can remember a time when the state was looking for ways to help its population and wasn't looking for a way out. Now, I don't want to bring any idea of a golden age to which we must look back to, or say that we must all yearn to return to the Garden of Eden, but we must be reminded that these transgressions against us are not universal, they are not necessary, and they are not inevitable. So you cannot be a thinking citizen without that anger of what we have lost since Franklin Roosevelt, since Nehru and Ambedkar, since Lloyd George and Clement Attlee, in the long struggle to make our societies more equitable and more fair. So, history, as George Orwell shows, kills fascism. Since a totalitarian state needs to own history, needs to erase it because a totalitarian state can tolerate no alternative to itself. And history is nothing but a collection of those alternatives. History must matter, since those that are in power now take such pains to revise it. And this gives historians a public obligation to the truth. No more than now, here in India, when some would have us believe that foul lie that our shared civilization is a product of one particular faith or creed or identity. Historians must say that perhaps Akbar did bring more to our history than Shivaji, and historians need to recall uncomfortable memories which offer important lessons. That violence of partition, often so willfully forgotten, it must stand as an ever-present reminder of what happens when our religious identities become our political affiliations. So history is angry, but it is also beautiful. An essay into strange times, with strange sights and smells, fish sauce on Roman galleys, murex shells, aboriginal songlines, golden churches on the shores of the Bosphorus, saxophones on the Mississippi, the discovery of America, all the scents of the Silk Road, the Doge of Venice casting a golden ring into the Adriatic and thus wedding the ocean, fateful love in Alexandria, cloves drying in the heat of Zanzibar, Hemingway drying a bar dry in Paris, and a generation, perhaps here today, who really thought they could change the world with a song. To try and see these things, to recover them, to see this innocence, is nothing more than a desperate, doomed attempt to resurrect a lost time. And that itself is nothing more than an act of love and an education in that most elusive but historically potent emotion. And the love that is contained in this desire to seek out truth is so powerful that it can kill hatred. There are those that think violence is intrinsic to a particular religion or poverty to a particular region. But when you look hard at the problems of the world, they are not essential, they are not inevitable, they are contingent on particular specific past events. The callousness of European colonialism is the cause of much conflict today, as various cultures and identities were thrown together, exploited, and thrust forward unwittingly and unwillingly into an alien and difficult modernity. Thus the present is made of the past, and present conflicts can be properly explained through history. And then we can restore a sense of humanity to those people who now seem so remote, inhuman, and incomprehensible. So history therefore teaches you the power of your present. At a memorial for victims of a racially motivated mass murder, President Obama sang Amazing Grace, that great anthem of the abolition movement, the war cry of the anti-slavery cause. This would have been unthinkable less than 50 years ago, as any historian knows. To have an African American singing that song as President of the United States means that that dream, the most important dream America has ever had, the dream of the martyred Reverend Martin Luther King, has become to be powerfully, though tragically and incompletely, true. Now, history makes you alive to these ideas, these ironies, these complexities, these beauties, and these tragedies, and thus makes you more alive to the world that is around you. And part of that is that history can renovate old ideas that seem stale but are still important, by drawing attention to the sacrifices and the suffering that was made on our journey to realize them. Ideas like freedom, democracy, freedom of expression, secularism, feminism, human rights. Perhaps we are bored of them from hearing them all the time on the news. But if you look at history, if you look at the history of McCarthyism or Stalinism or our own emergency, one must be reminded of the importance of these ideas and above all of their almost infinite fragility. And the past can teach us not to take ourselves too seriously, especially our decisions, by making us aware of the sheer randomness of things. And these are the delicious what-ifs of history. What if the other side had won? What if that deranged Serb assassin had just stayed home in 1914? What if the Byzantines had kept Constantinople? What if Tesla had won the War of Currents? What if Adlai Stevenson had won that election, or Al Gore that one? What if Jinnah had died 15 years earlier? The smallest of small circumstances can affect a vertiginous array of outcomes. So history is a powerful lesson in the sheer randomness of things and how we can barely control our own lives. And what I take from that is, since the future is a different country, one which we may not even be able to shape, and one which we will not recognize ourselves, the time to act on what we find beautiful is now. And since we know that the world yields meaning and connections to those who look for it, start looking now. Study for the sake of it, because nobody can study for the sake of it. My idea today, my TED idea, is that people study for the sake of their self. And my story is, I believe that since history is the broadest study of humanity, a study that seeks to appreciate and not diagnose, it is able to make you fully human, since the past constitutes the present, and the present constitutes us. To study history is thus to study ourselves and to consciously construct our own selves in the context of all these vast and compelling processes and these vast and compelling stories. And to be aware of all of this and to reflect on what has gone into making this beautiful thing, the present day. And above all, to help us make an informed choice on the life we want to live and the kind of history we want to make. Thank you.